At Raising Financial Freedom, we're on a mission to inspire and empower financial freedom to every parent so that they can pass it along to their children. Through engaging stories, expert advice, and actionable tips, our podcast is transforming lives and helping listeners take control of their financial futures. Your support helps us produce high-quality, impactful episodes, expand our reach to underserved communities, and keep this life-changing content free for everyone. Whether it's $5, $10, or any amount, every donation fuels our mission and makes a difference. You can donate by clicking the heart-shaped link next to the social icons or the link at the bottom of the show notes. Once again, thank you for supporting Raising Financial Freedom and joining us in creating a world where financial freedom is within everyone's reach. Together, we can make a difference.
Welcome, and today on episode 15 of Raising Financial Freedom, we have a hip-hop artist and MC, Dyalekt. Now, Dyalekt and the good people from Pocket Change teach financial literacy through hip-hop music. We are going to find out how that's done and their outlook on financial literacy today. Now, I want to remind you, you could still be a part of this show by answering the question of the month, which you can find out on the contact page of raisingfinancialfreedom.com. So now let's dive in and see what Dyalekt has to say.
Dad, hurry up and turn on the music.
Have you ever wondered why some people seem to have it all financially? Do well-off parents simply hand their children money? Or is there more to this wealth thing? Welcome to Raising Financial Freedom, the podcast. We are here to talk about everything you never knew to teach your children when it comes to starting their financial future. The principles behind wealth and methods that are out there to teach your child about personal financial freedom. There is no real trick to earning other than learning. We are here to discuss, teach, and grow with you. Raising Financial Freedom, the podcast, with your host and concerned parent, Eric Yard. Let us get right into today's show.
Welcome everybody to another episode of Raising Financial Freedom. Today I would like to welcome Dyalekt.
Peace. How you doing?
All right.
It's a lot of love in the virtual room.
Dyalekt, with the current state of financial literacy, taking a bird's eye view, what is your outtake of it?
Overall, like what financial literacy is doing. On one hand, I really dig that financial literacy has become a term that people use and that people understand that it's necessary and are pushing to get it more in schools. I remember when I first started working with my now wife, but Pamela Capelli with Brunch and Budget and Pockets Change, when she was founding it and getting it together, she was introducing it to these schools that were like, this is really great and this is really smart, but I don't know what to do with this. And they were just dismissing it out of hand. So I do love that it's becoming a thing that's going around the country. People are making initiatives and making it required to be in schools. I do worry that the old machinations are already getting up in it. So it's left to be something that is intentionally not enough. So it doesn't really work well. So folks will go, oh, it doesn't work that well. So let's just focus on getting them in engineering or something like that. Let them learn a trade. So I do worry the same old racial wealth divide stuff, the same old historical lies are all creeping in there. So I'm happy that it's moving forward, but it's always a struggle.
I hear you, definitely. So how are you using hip-hop pedagogy to get financial literacy across?
Word. If you don't mind, I'm going to pull back a little bit in terms of myself and what I do. I'm a hip-hop MC, which I make rap songs and things like that. But that's not really the point. The whole thing of the hip-hop thing is the culture. And the culture of hip-hop is based around these performance aesthetics. So you're rapping, you're beatboxing, you're DJing, you're b-boying, which is now going to be the Olympics, you're graffiti writing. And the whole thing about that is, if you're familiar with Gardner and multiple intelligence and the idea that we learn differently, all of these modes of expression are also modes of learning. It's reflexive like that. Just the ABC rhyme is a great rhyme mnemonic. Rhymes are great ways to get people to do rote memorization and even lead to actual learning. And people lean into these skills, people lean into these tendencies, also these things that are fun to them and allows them to learn. Early in my hip hop career, I leaned really deep into education and I started working with youth on this idea of learning how you learn best. And we would dig into these aesthetic elements and also the community-based ideals behind hip hop to dig into what it means to be a learner, how they want to learn, and how they can succeed. So that's something I've been doing for more than 15 years. And in the past 5 years, I realized that money has a lot to do with kids' ability to feel like they can get things done, with their belief in themselves, with their belief in their ability to learn. They're like super tied together. It's one of the reasons why a lot of folks will stop when it comes to digging into their finance, because they've been told so many times that they can't do it. They're not smart enough, that they just give up. So it's always been in the back of my head, and creeping more and more into the work that we do. I started working with Pockets Change when Pam asked me to come and do a guest workshop. They were asked to do a job prep workshop, and they didn't have one that they built. And I had one that was based in Lincoln Douglas debate and rap and freestyle rhyme. We would basically take you through the paces of putting together a debate, but you would write a poem for your opening argument, you would kick a freestyle for your rebuttal. And the whole thing about it was there was a focus on how we looked and what we did. And when you can handle somebody throwing you 35 seconds of a rhyme and in a minute flip it right back on them, then you'll be fine if an employer, a prospective employer, throws you a curveball. If you can handle the code switching of maintaining the audience's expectations at a moment's notice and talking to someone who you've never met before about this deep endeavor that you have these feelings about, then you'll be fine code switching in an office that you would go to. And the same thing goes for your manner of dress, looking people in the eye, your research, and all of that. So basically it was using people's interest and creativity to get them in a job prep program. And that got us to get further into how much finance can use hip hop pedagogy and how much the creative entrepreneurship in hip hop really needs to understand the basics of finance.
Wow, that sounds great. When did you realize that this type of method that you're using was getting you good results?
So I started doing this in around 2003, 2004. I was working with the amazing Claudia Alec, who we were going around with, what was the name of the organization? America Scores. It was this after-school program with soccer and poetry with 8 to 12-year-olds. I think they're still around. Really good organization that has... it's about being healthy. It's about being literate. And they brought us in there to work with some schools. And I kept getting this thing from schools where they're like, oh, we don't have time to worry about all this poetry, artsy, hip-hoppy stuff. We got to get these kids to pass the Regents. And that became my focus. And I was like, okay, how can I use the things that we're doing to help these kids have fun, get into the arts, and also be able to handle these standardized tests and not be stressed about them? So I started trying out the hip-hop pedagogy, a thing that we were calling the Regent Busters. A number of other hip-hop educators have done different variations of it, especially in New York, where the Regents are such a big thing. And we started working on kids, getting them to understand how equations work, how multiple choice questions work, their relationship to those types of questions. There's not a lot in school about dealing with the kids who have anxiety with word problems versus dealing with the kids who have anxiety when they hit multiple choice questions. So we started dealing with their personal relationships with what they were doing. And I saw such marked improvement just in the scores and what they were doing, but also in, I always bring up self-efficacy, like just in their belief in themselves that they can do. And that was the real big thing. In finance, we talk a lot about habit building and how one of the most important things is not that you have saved money, because under the right circumstances, we all can save for a particular thing, but that you are a saver, that you have built the habit, built the muscle, and that's part of you now. So yeah, that's when I seen it start working for me.
Okay. So you mentioned the music. What kind of music, what era of hip hop are they responding to?
Yeah, it's all over the place in terms of the music, like the rap music that folks listen to, because I remember when I first started coming into schools in the early mid 2000s, there was a lot of sentiment that rap and hip hop is just about violence and drugs. And I would have 8-year-old kids telling me, I don't listen to that music because it's about negative things. So sometimes I would need to introduce them to more interesting, positive, and creative in general types of hip hop just for the subject matter tip. A number of students are really into current music, the ones that reach to them. But there are plenty of students who love old school, which is hilarious to me because I'm like a middle child of hip hop where the old school had already existed and there was a new school and a new school before I got on. So now my stuff is considered old school and theirs is like legendary archival stuff. But people dig into it, just you'll see kids today talking about, I love the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and like 1970s and 80s horror movies. So it's really interesting that when I was a kid, people would say, oh, that Run DMC stuff, that's not cool no more, that's played out. But now these kids have an appreciation for it like it's classic music. So it really does run the gamut. There's a lot of interest in current music, which is really great because, the hip hop thing, there's always sampling. So I can tell people like they got that sample from Das Effects, who used that sample from somebody else. But I think the internet may have something to do with it. But a lot of the kids that we work with, and it's something that we endeavor to encourage, is they're into research. So they want to dig into the rabbit holes and find where all of these things came from.
Okay, like you said, that they are interested in this era rap, but they are catching on to the more of the old school. With this era of rap that they are listening to, which is, you can say it's about spend, how are you counteracting with budget, save, invest? Introducing the Dollars and Cents Bundle. This isn't just another boring financial guide. It's your secret weapon for raising financially smart kids. Inside this bundle, you'll get 3 powerful tools to make money lessons a breeze. First up, a kid-friendly budget sheet. It's the perfect way to help your child track their money, build healthy habits, and get hands-on experience managing their earnings. Next, you'll unlock the guide Money Mavericks, bite-sized wisdom for busy parents. Think of it as your quick start playbook, packed with expert-backed tips to help you teach your kids about saving, spending, and everything in between. And finally, there's my favorite part, interactive digital flashcards. These are perfect for teaching core money concepts in a way that's fun, engaging, and memorable for the whole family. Here's the best part. The Dollars and Cents Bundle is completely free. Yep, free. All you have to do is sign up and the tools are yours, delivered straight to your inbox. You owe it to your kids to give them the skills they need to succeed in life. The Dollars and Cents Bundle makes it simple, fun, and totally doable, no matter how busy you are. So what are you waiting for? Make financial literacy a family adventure. Head over to show notes right now to grab your free Dollars and Cents Bundle link, or go to nurturingfinance.com and subscribe. Don't wait. Start your family's financial journey today.
So the really interesting thing about it, there's a few ways. One, I've been putting it into my own music. I got some stuff that I've been working on about dealing with the behavioral psychology of it all. Because the ill thing about it is, and I mean the old school ill, meaning not ill, meaning deleterious, about it is we don't have any social cues for saving money. I love going to these financial conferences where they have the behavioral psychologists who are like way smarter than me on this tip, but they really get in there about how when you talk about spending money, there's all these social rewards. I got this cool thing. I went to this great place. I put it on the gram. It's all great. But there aren't any times when you can actively brag in a social setting about saving money. Like the only time you actually say I saved money is when you go, hey, I saved money on these shoes I bought, which you didn't save money. You spent less money than you intended to spend, but that's not the same thing as saving money. So one thing is understanding that the media we have around us is part and parcel of the lack of social cues. So we examine that with that kind of lens and say bragging is a part of the idea because folks don't know how to be introspective with what they're doing. And we ask kids to, similarly to how in like the 90s and 2000s, people started making ad busters to refute the effects and the ideas that advertisement was having on people, to flip these ideas into if spend is the norm and that's the thing that gets people love, what is the thing that I can save for that allows me to spend in alignment with my values? That's the real thing of it. Like you can't ask somebody to save money before you ask them what they value, what they want, and what they need to spend money on. Because the idea is, especially with kids, is I'm gonna save this money, there needs to be a place where I know to spend it. And if you know where to spend your money, then you will have a better ability to spend the money on the things that you love while also saving for the things that you want to spend in the future, including like retirement and taking care of your family and all those other things. It's really important for us to get a plan for our money. One of my students said, I really love this quote that she came up with is, if I don't have a plan for my money, it's going to have a plan for me. So we try to make sure that students are equipped to have that plan.
I like that term. I like that.
That's Jasmine, by the way. I should not give her work a shout out, not the person. You got to credit the artist.
I hear that. We spoke a little. You do have a child, right? What is your plans to put your child on the right path to financial literacy?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've been thinking about that a lot lately. I've been working with some clients and some students, and it's just been a big topic of conversation of what do we want to do for the future? I read somewhere there's this thing about if a child was born around now and you wanted them to be financially secure, they need $5 million. And that's, don't need to get a job, don't need to be worried about the systems and all that. They can just be there. And there's a part of me that's, do I just need $5 million? If we get 5 million, he has it and then he's secure and we don't have to worry about anything. And that's the fear that comes from how oppressive and terrifying capitalism in this country can be sometimes, where you're just like, I want to hit that apex and not have to stress. But the more important thing, I think, like earlier when I was saying the stuff about the values, is really trying to model. My wife is a financial planner and has been doing this for even longer than me. And we make sure that as we preach our things after our sessions where we go talk to students or talk to clients or whoever, we then examine that in our own selves and we do it in public. One big thing that I learned about, this is more like psychology stuff, but this is also related to parenting, is there's this idea that you shouldn't necessarily argue in front of your kids. And some studies have shown that's not always helpful, that for a lot of kids, if they never see their parents argue, they don't see their parents resolve issues. So you need to see them resolve the issues. So what we're trying to model is talking openly and frankly about what we're doing and being real about the mistakes that are made or just luxurious purchases that are made on purpose and finding where we resolve them so that he can have some modeling for figuring out doing his own resolving.
Okay.
Again, that's all easier said than done. We try and he little.
You can only try. That's one thing. As a parent, you can only try to do your best.
Yeah.
So with your method of teaching, what frustrations are you experiencing?
In terms of the hip hop pedagogy and also general finance education, I encounter a lot of frustration with the systems that want to maintain status quos. I've talked to a number of people that are very invested in the myths of finance and how this country has grown and what people's options are. And it's really tough to get into a place where you're trying to talk frankly with the kids, but the teachers and the administration aren't necessarily down with it. And sometimes, not to really throw folks under the bus or anything like that, but a number of times when you go to schools and you talk to folks, you see how do I say this judiciously? You see the racism. You see the white supremacy that holds over everything. And it often will be well-intentioned people. I remember when I had some well-intentioned teachers who came up to me and said, how do we tell our kids not to listen to their parents? How do we tell our kids that their parents make bad decisions with money and they shouldn't be like them? I'm like, what are you talking about? How are we going to do this to these people? Tell them not to listen to their folks.
Wow.
Well, it's real similar to, why my wife started her business, when she was telling me that a lot of times when people of color they would say that other planners would tell them, stop sending your brother money, stop taking care of your family, or doing those things that we tend to do because that's how communal living is. So I think the biggest frustrations is dealing with these unconscious systems. Because like I said, honestly, a number of these people will be well-intentioned and will show genuine love for their kids, but they're so entrenched, invested, and dare I say in many cases addicted to white supremacy that they can't let go of these harmful actions, even though in their hearts they want more. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you're saying that experience some racism when you go into the school. Can you explain to the listeners in some sort of detail how a session goes down when you visit school?
Okay, yeah, sure. We have a number of different options that we share at school. What we usually have is some sort of rest, depending on capacity and time, and how everything has changed now with Corona. Say maybe 8 sessions where we would come in either for an after-school, hour-and-a-half basis, or an in-class session, which would be for long the classes. And we would have a couple of goals. We would have a mindset type goal where we would have pre and post quizzes, just getting the kids to understand simple financial terms, where they are in their relationship with money, as well as oftentimes a practical project. We don't like to be really hypothetical or theoretical and do like stock market games and stuff like that. What we're more interested in is giving kids a chance to try things to program. Half of the class with mindset, dealing with something we have on our website. If you go to pocketschange.com/personality, there's a personality quiz for your money personality. So we will have kids take these quizzes and they will deal with the psychology of where they get with their relationship. We will have collaborate and work together to create some projects that could possibly make them money right now. So we teach about financial basics and also how to teach these things and how to have these conversations with their students without shame. And in the best case scenarios, and we have a couple of them coming up with some spots I'm really excited about, we have a family day where we get to have an intergenerational workshop where we'll have the teachers, the students, and their parents all in the room where everyone can talk about their finances together. It's way more helpful. We talk about changing the way we talk about finance, which means talking more about finance, because talking less about finance only helps the people who want to keep money out of our hands. But it's difficult to tell a student to talk to their parents about their paychecks and where their taxes come from and just go, okay, yep, here's the information. Now go off to your parents. We get much better traction when we have them in the room together and everyone gets to work things out before these parents feel like they're ambushed or blindsided when their kids come to them.
Oh, yeah. That's
you know, right? Like you just imagine he just comes home and is like, how much you make? Is that net or gross? What? And you're like, I'm trying to make dinner. What are you talking about?
What's that? Go wash up. I'll talk about it later.
Exactly.
All right. So what is the one thing people don't realize about money?
That's the one thing people don't. There's so many things. Like the big thing I think is the emotional stuff behind it. I don't think many people understand the depth of our emotional connection to money. And I don't want to overstate, but like oftentimes trauma. There is often a lot of trauma around money that we don't think about. When we think of our past trauma, we think of social trauma, we think of relational trauma, but we don't think of how money can shape how we view relationships, transactions, and collaborations. There are many people who are distrustful of folks because people have been transactional with them in the past. And I can even speak to my own. I grew up mixed race, right? My father is a Russian Jewish immigrant. My mother is Black. And my father died when I was a kid. And I had this weird situation where my father's family decided they didn't like my Black mom and wanted to keep inheritance money out of our hands. And there was this huge legal battle and this big fight over it. And I got some and didn't get some of it. And what was funny is I couldn't really touch it until I turned 18. And over the years, I grew this deep resentment for money and these transactional relationships because I haven't seen the white Jewish side of my family since then. We don't have any relationship. And I blamed money rather than their own greed at the time for it. And I remember when I did get my hands on some money, turned 18, got a job, was working, got a little bit of the inheritance money, I was quick to blow it. And not by spending lavishly on myself, but on my people and people who needed it. Because I was just like, oh, this is terrible. I need to throw it away. And it put me in this position where even when I was making money, I didn't have money. And not only could I not take care of myself, but the thing I really realized is for all of my desire in my heart, I was talking really about stuff in your heart versus what you do, for all of my desire in my heart to take care of my peoples in the larger, grander sense, I wasn't able to because I wasn't taking care of myself. And I had to unpack my own personal trauma and my relationship with money before I could start making those right decisions. Because I would sit there with the right decision in my face. That's the thing, like, people act like folks are dumb, but people aren't dumb. We know what the right decision is. We're told, we have the facts and the figures, but there are oftentimes these amazing, like the body is wild. Like it can make you do things even when your mind knows better. And I had to really deal with my relationship with money before I could actually make the decisions that lined up with my values.
Dealing with that inheritance issue that you was having, how did it make you feel at the time, and how have you learned and grown from it?
Yeah, one of the big things is about how people will treat you in terms of what money you have and in terms of your value, you having a monetary value. It's something we often talk about with entrepreneurs. People like to say, know your value, know your worth. And I like to add a bit of language to that. Know the worth of your work. Your work's worth, because we are unmeasurable, shouldn't be categorized in that kind of way. Because I started thinking of myself as a number value, and I started noticing and seeing the people who would perceive me for some kind of value. Even as I became a creative and an educator, I started negotiating my rates, and it was really difficult. It was so difficult for me to invoice people, for me to set rates, for me to negotiate, because it would cause me this intense anxiety to determine my value. And the way I've been able, and I'd say, again, this is easier said than done stuff, and I don't think I'm finished. I don't know if I'll ever be finished, but the key ingredient is remembering that my work has value. I not only am a hip hopper, but I believe in hip hop. I think that it's a beautiful thing. I believe in education. I love teachers. All the teachers, even the teachers who I think are using pedagogy that doesn't work and all that, we're all part of this great thing. And if I want them to do well, I have to do well. And when I was able to, because that's part of my trauma, it was hard for me. And I think a lot of folks, it's hard for you to make things better for yourself. So you have to find the larger thing to make things better for. And remember that yourself is a part of that.
Since starting Pockets Exchange, what is the best thing that's happened to you since?
Capalid and Andrea Ferrero are the founders. I joined them some years, I think 5 or 6 years in. Actually, I have to ask. I don't let me get the number wrong. But I joined them around 2014. And I think the best stuff that's happened, we've been able to, it's funny, as you say that, like just saying about the trauma and stuff earlier, I don't want to talk about the accomplishments. I talk about like my students' accomplishments. I've had students who have been able to get themselves financially secure. I've been with students long enough that I've been talking to high school kids who are now out on their own. Real biggest and best stuff for me. But professionally, it's really been amazing for me as well. I've gotten to work Prosperity Now, NCRC, the AFCPE, the folks who create the Accredited Financial Counselor designation, do a couple of keynotes and workshops with their professional. And a really powerful and amazing thing, we started the Race and Wealth Podcast Network with Diedrich Asante Muhammad, who's over at NCRC, and have been doing the Preach to the Choir podcast with him. So that's been really amazing and great to be able to spread and share these ideas that we have about finance and how we can make things better together. So it's been a lot of really awesome stuff that's been going down. I was going to try to throw in like a cute quote about how when you work hard at stuff, good stuff comes. But that's not really often necessarily true. I've been privileged that the work that's been recognized, we've been able to, really been able to help write curricula for many different groups who have allowed us to help change the way that we're talking about finance by digging more into the history of things and knowing and understanding how they affect things today. It's beautiful to have a conversation about minimum wage with it and be able to discuss with them how the problem with tipping comes from folks not wanting to pay newly freed Africans and coming up with a crappy, harmful system, and that being grandfathered into how we deal with minimum wage. And when we talk about wage theft and how that's not criminalized, that righteous anger that you see in kids, the really great thing, and been able to see that go and grow into them not only be able to take care of themselves, but being good community members and leaders.
So with everything that's going on right now, how has Pocket Change pivoted in order to still spread the message?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like most folks, we've been doing our workshops virtually. It helps because we've been doing a lot of virtual workshops even before then with Pocket Exchange, well, not just Pocket Exchange, with Brunch and Budget, which is the other business that Pamela Capellet runs that is a personal finance service. There's this thing in there called Sea Change, which is group financial planning specifically designed for the needs of people of color. And that's been on Zoom for years. So we have a lot more experience than a lot of other folks. So we've been able to pivot rather quickly to doing the Zoom workshops. It's also pushed us to create more online fillable form and gamified things for students to reach out to. As a teacher and a performer, I've always been the type of cat where, and I tell people this, you rock to the people who are rocking with you. The kid or the audience member that is staring at their phone in the back, it's okay not to fight for them. You rock for the people who are interested and as the party gets more interesting, the other people will get interested as well. But in the digital space, it's opposite game. You're preaching to the lurkers. You're trying to get the ones who are not necessarily saying things, but are engaged. And there are so many different ways that we do the engagement part. And it's chat-based, it's asking folks to unmute. But a lot of times it's trust, which is one of the things that's important in a classroom, but so difficult to ascertain in this digital space because you don't feel that physical sensation of people being there with you in the room. So we've been pivoting to the digital and using a lot of asynchronous is the new buzz term. Folks doing a thing while we're at a different time from when we're doing our thing with them. So rather than taking people hand holding and walking through each step of a project, we create a video that's live, share an idea, or maybe even a recorded video, share the idea, give students time to work on what they're doing, bring it back to us, and then we have a live chat about it. It's all still iterating like everybody else. We're still trying to find ways to make things better.
So what do you love the most when it comes to teaching financial literacy?
Oh man, what do I love the most? I love to be able to be real with kids. The thing that made me the maddest in school was when teachers would lie or half step with us, when they would just share the curriculum that's there and not give deeper insight. I remember as a kid loving learning, but not loving class. And that was infuriating. Even as a youth, I was like, I know there's better ways than this. I know folks have more. And I sought out my own mentors and my own educators. My mom actually brought me to other people who are mentors and who are educators in her field and around the world. Not necessarily around the world because we were still small and not traveling like that, but they were from around the world. And for me, when I can get real with kids, I was saying earlier about like the righteous anger and bring the real to them. And when they come with a piece of research and they share something with me that is new to them or possibly new to me, that makes my heart sing. That makes everything better because kids want to make the world better, especially kids who've been affected by the financial world that we live in, who've been kids who grow up in poverty, are more likely to want to work. Like when I ask them about what they want to be when they grow up, they always talk about they want to do something that gives back and helps out the people in their position. And when we show them that it's possible to do that and help them build a plan for that, their eyes light up in a way that it's nothing like you've ever seen.
That sounds nice. When you put it that way, I mean, that facial expression that they give you, it just make you melt at times.
It really does. Oh, a fun one on that, and talking about like the face and the melt. I feel like we started doing this fairly early in my tenure with them, but another psychology thing we learned is that people have trouble thinking about their future self as a real person. We think of our future selves as a stranger, not like ourselves in the future. And one thing that's been shown is if you can see a picture of what you would look like in the future, you're more likely to consider your future self. I guess it just makes it more concrete in your brain. Again, I don't know enough about the psychology to really know that. But what we did was we had kids take selfies and then run them through a filter that would show them as an old person. And I'm talking about like in kids' eyes, when they see the picture of themselves gray-haired and wrinkly, and they're like, oh man, I better start saving for retirement. That's some stuff.
I know that filter.
Oh yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
I think there's another one that's like the opposite way around, but yeah, I know that filter. What is the best piece of advice you can give parents when it comes to teaching their children financial literacy?
I parrot this because I think that it's right. I haven't found anyone better. The best piece of financial advice I ever heard is that where you spend your money is a representation of what you value. In other words, you always put your money where your mouth is. All the time. Whatever you're buying, whatever you're spending money on, whatever you're saving money for, whatever you're not spending money on, it reflects what's important to you. And hey, I don't mean this as a harsh judgment on anybody. There are plenty of times when we buy things that in our hearts we don't want to be a part of because we don't have many other options. Plenty of folks are like, I don't like BP or whatever oil company, but in order to get to their jobs or take care of their families, they do have to go and buy gasoline and put it in a car. But there are places where you can make a bit of a stand. And this comes in things lower than boycotts. Like folks will be like, oh, boycott this and boycott that. And it's a lot of energy and it's very tough to boycott. And it takes years and coordination and lots more stuff more than just not buying a thing. You can always just not buy a thing. You can always say, that ain't gonna be me. And it doesn't have to be a big thing. It doesn't have to be a stand that you're making. You don't have to post it on Instagram for everybody to see. You don't have to tell your neighbors and yell it to everyone from the top of the rooftops, I'm not buying this stuff. You could just not buy it and feel chill in your own self. That's a decision that gives you power. Because in this system, I think a lot of times we feel like we don't have power anyway, so why even worry about it? I buy Nike shoes for whatever reason. I'm going to buy these Converse shoes. Oh, Nike owns Converse. I want to buy my skincare from a Black-owned company. I'm going to buy this Carol's daughter. Oh, L'Oreal owns Carol's daughter. And it can be exhausting at times. And we're never going to be able to, I mean, at least not today, we're not able to be 100% free in our purchasing power. But the times when we can, if we do that, even in small ways, just like habits, just like saving, if we build that muscle, it will make it much easier to do more and lift more weight in the future.
Dyalekt, I want to thank you for coming to the show and sharing some solid gems that you laid down just now. Now, let the listeners know what Pocket Change has in the future and where they can find you and hopefully get in touch and see if they could get their child under your umbrella.
Yeah, most definitely. Please reach out to us. You can take the Money Personality quiz and also download some other free information at pocketschange.com. It's pockets with an S change. It's actually a Gertrude Stein quote. It's a cool literary thing. You can check that out at pocketschange.com for information about me and the work that I do all around. It's dyalekt.com. It's spelled with a Y and a K rather than an I and a C because I'm a 90s kid. So that's dyalekt.com. If you want to see my latest creative endeavor, it's called the Museum of Dead Words, and it's at museumofdeadwords.com. Right now, Pockets Change is working with some organizations to put together some financial literacy-based hip-hop concerts next year and do more collaboration with a number of organizations around the country. We're here not just for your students, but also for your families and for your educators and administration. We want to help everybody change the way we talk about finance so we can make it easier for us to talk about finance and do finance. Thank you so much for having me.
Now, what I've taken from that talk with Dyalekt is that you can use many methods in order to get financial literacy across to your child. As you can see with Pockets Change, they are using music in order to get their message across. And if one or two methods don't work, keep trying. Keep trying until something works. You know your child, and you would know what strikes a chord with your child. Now, coming up next week, we have a guest coming in to help us out with a closer look into credit. We are going to take a closer look and see how we could start our children on a better foot when it comes to credit. Now, as always, I would like you to share with another parent. And if you have not subscribed, please subscribe. Until next week, stay safe.
We really hope you enjoyed this episode of Raising Financial Freedom, the podcast. Stay connected with us directly through raisingfinancialfreedom.com. You can also join the discussion on social media, which you can also find links on our website. If you would like to speak with us, please send us an email through info@raisingfinancialfreedom.com. And as always, thank you for pushing your mindset towards a better reality. This concludes the most thought-provoking portion of your day. Don't forget to please like and subscribe to stay fully up to date. Until next time, be kind to yourself and each other.
Before you go, I wanted to tell you about a new option called Fan Mail, which uses text messaging to give our listeners the ability to text our show directly. There is a link in every episode at the top that will say, "Send us a text." You can use that link to text the show. When a listener clicks the link in our episode description, a new text message will open on your device directly to the show. It's that easy. So tell me what you think, what else you want to hear out of the show, or simply your thoughts on that episode you just heard.